Hey guys, what's up? It's Danny, and in this video, I'm going to be comparing on-campus housing versus off-campus housing in college. As a college student, are you better off living on campus and dorming or living off campus and commuting? When it comes to college, you really only have two options when it comes to living. It's pretty much you live on campus or you live off campus. Both on-campus and off-campus housing have their pros and cons. Last year, I was a freshman and I was living in a dorm. However, this year, I am a sophomore and I am living off campus. I'll be comparing the two housing situations through different categories so that you guys can see their positives and their negatives. Before I begin this video though, please make sure to check out my YouTube channel where I do videos and vlogs revolving around school and lifestyle. And remember to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with my weekly uploads. Also, make sure you follow me on social media, on Instagram and on Snapchat at Goalkeeper Danny to see what I do day to day as a college student. But now guys, it's time to compare on-campus housing versus off-campus housing. The first category that I'm going to be talking about, which is really important, especially when it comes to college living, is cost. Now, usually in most colleges and most situations, it is cheaper to live on campus and live in a dorm. Even if you live off campus and you pay a rent that's pretty similar to the dorms, when you live off campus, you have a lot of out-of-pocket expenses like cable, electricity, water, Wi-Fi. When you live in a dorm, all those expenses are covered. You don't have to pay for any other utilities, maybe a dining hall plan, but that's about it. Now, when it comes to living on campus versus off campus and the cost, this really also depends on the city in which your college is located. Depending on the city, it might be cheaper to live on campus or it might be cheaper to live off campus. Another factor that goes into cost is who do you live with and with how many people do you live with. If you end up going to school somewhere that's like really close to your house and you want to save money on housing, something you could do is live with your parents, which is pretty much what I do. I don't pay anything for housing. I live right here in my home and it's pretty great. Another thing that I've heard that people that live off campus do is that they rent a really big house. However, they have a bunch of people that live in it, so the rent comes out really cheap and sometimes it comes out cheaper than living in a dorm. The second category I'm going to be looking at is convenience. Usually when you live on campus, it's much more convenient. Even me as a freshman last year when I lived in the dorm, it really was convenient. Mainly because when you live on campus, you live on the campus. Like that's literally how it's called, on-campus housing, which means that you live like really close to all your classes and you also live close to like all the main areas of campus. Even if a class or a certain place on campus is really far, you could still walk or bike there really easily. There really is no need for a car when it comes to on-campus housing. However, when it comes to living off campus, you really do need to find a mode of transportation, whether it's you driving or you paying an Uber and having somebody else drive for you. No matter which one you choose, it's always gonna drain you. If you have a car, you're gonna be wasting money on gas, and if you don't drive, then you're gonna be wasting a lot of money on Uber. Now, the third category that I'm gonna be looking at is food and eating. If you like cooking or just choosing what you wanna eat, then living off campus is the way to go. When you live off campus, even if you live with a roommate, you usually have like your own kitchen. You can store whatever you want, you could cook whatever you want, you could bake, you could grill, whatever you want, you could cook it. However, if you live on campus and you live in a dorm, a lot of dorms don't have a kitchen, which means you can't cook. Now, of course, it doesn't mean that you're gonna starve to death, it just means that your dining options are not that flexible. Pretty much when you live in a dorm, you have 3 dining options: the dining hall, the campus food court, and ordering food. The dining hall food isn't that bad, however, sometimes it's gonna be really repetitive and they're not always gonna have what you want. With the food court, they might not have too many restaurants and sometimes the hours just don't match with your schedule. And lastly, with ordering food, you're gonna be wasting a lot of money. The next category that I'm gonna be talking about is privacy. Typically, when you live off campus, it is much easier to get privacy. This is mainly for 2 reasons. The first reason is that when you live in a dorm, even though it might be really big, the space is typically shared with you and a roommate or somebody else, which means everybody kind of like sleeps in the same space. It's pretty much like one big room, all the beds are like aligned, you really have no privacy at all. However, when you live off campus, even if you do have a roommate, typically the rooms are divided and you do get your own room. And the second thing is that when you live in a dorm on campus, you typically live like in a floor where everybody like knows each other and there are just so many distractions going on. People leave their door open, people are always like in the hallway hanging out, people are always knocking on your door to hang out, or sometimes your roommate might have like people over when when you want to study. On top of that, you have an RA, and even though my RA was amazing, sometimes RAs can really put their restrictions on you. When you live off campus, you usually have more privacy and not too many restrictions. The next category that I'm going to be looking at is social life. At least from my experience, from my opinions, what my friends have told me, there's definitely more social life going on in the dorms. This is mainly because of what I was mentioning earlier. When you live on campus, you live in a dorm and you live on that floor where everybody like knows each other, everybody always wants to do something. On top of that, as a college freshman last year, when you live in a dorm, it's much easier to make friends just because you have so many people around you. I'm not trying to say that if you live off campus, you can't make friends or you're gonna be completely antisocial. All I'm trying to say is that if you live on campus in a dorm, usually there's more of like the social vibe going on. The next category that is really important is roommates. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this one is pretty even just because you could have roommate problems no matter where you live. However, I would say that if you live off campus, it might be easier living with a roommate. Mainly because when you live off campus, you get to like choose your roommate and you get to know who they are before moving in. And also because like I mentioned earlier, when you live off campus, you don't share like the same bed space with your roommate. So if you really like have a roommate problem, you just go to your own room. Now, when it comes to living on campus, it really depends on the school. The school lets you decide if you get to choose a roommate or if they do it randomly. And like I said, when you live on campus or in a dorm, you usually share that space. So if a fight breaks out, you're still gonna have to like deal with your roommate no matter what. Now, the next category is where does it feel better to live? Where is it nicer? Where are you gonna feel better living? Usually dorms are not the nicest places to live in. They're really small, they're really cramped, they have a really ugly color, which means that living off campus is much nicer. Off campus houses are usually much bigger than a small little dorm. If you live in a condo or apartment, they might have really nice amenities like a pool and a gym. And on top of that, when you live off campus, you really get to make the place like your home. You get to have your own bed in, you get to put in a lot of things that just aren't allowed in a dorm. However, I have heard of schools upping their dorm game. Personally, I know that my school, UM, we are making new dorms because the dorms we have right now are not the best. Those were pretty much all the categories that I was going to go into when it came to on-campus versus off-campus housing. No matter if you end up living on campus or off campus, just know that college living is part of the whole college experience. If you guys enjoyed this video and found it useful, remember to give it a thumbs up down below and also subscribe to my channel to stay up to date with my weekly uploads. That is pretty much it for me, but always remember to stay hydrated.